Well, welcome into the final episode of Live at Liberty for this season. I did tell somebody that we were ending it, and they're like, no, and I was like, no, it's not ending forever. We'll be back in August, but this is kind of the wrap-up show for just the trial run of this. You know, we kind of started this, and we didn't quite know what was going to happen, so we thought on this last show we just kind of get everybody in the room. Austin was a lot of times behind the camera, but we pulled him in here. And
where I'm most comfortable.
Yes.
Just to get that out there.
Yes. You're not the fool on camera, right? So just kind of pull everybody in and talk about, just kind of wrap up everything. So I want you to think about this. So this is episode 20. We've had around 40 guests, so we've had a lot of people on the show this in a short season. The app came available midway through, so we kind of changed the way we were putting it out there. Nicole did 5 months of anniversaries and birthdays, which is a whole lot of party going on.
But let me just say, I'm really surprised at how few people in Liberty want to celebrate themselves and their children and everything else. We opened it up for them to tell us all the things for us to share with everyone and celebrate. And we didn't get that much response. So I don't know if we have just a very humble congregation or what it is. But then also, a lot of us don't know our own birthdays and anniversaries because there were a lot that were wrong or missed. So
it took me about 6 years to figure it out.
Well, I guess we're in good company then because I was one of those.
It's a longer story.
So,
I was about to say, we had several couples
I know.
who had different anniversaries in there. So, yeah, it helped us to kind of clean up the records. So.
It did.
Somebody might be in trouble then if they don't know their anniversary.
Well, I just put it in wrong, I guess. I know my anniversary. I don't know.
Hey, I'll tell you, here's what's really interesting about that. I know what you're doing. You're stereotyping here. Both times that we caught that, the lady was wrong. The guy was right.
Yeah. Yep, that is true. That is true. Yes.
We just have so much on our plate, though.
That's what it is.
And it's good to be well loved by husbands who remember those things too. So
Yes.
Ours was weird because we got married on the 22nd of May, but we didn't have the ceremony where everybody was invited until the 30th, and then Val's birthday is the 31st.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So we got married around a campfire, in a private front
That
yard
makes
ceremony
perfect sense.
on the 22nd.
I'm not a bit surprised.
I didn't have any coffee in my hand, but it was 8 o'clock on a Friday night after work.
Okay.
But then we got our marriage license in the mail, and it said the 21st.
Okay.
So that was confusing, and then so we invited we had 40 people, family and close friends on the 30th, and then Val's birthday is the next day. So it took me a while to straighten it all out.
So hold on. So you got married
Then
on
you
the
throw
20th
Mother's Day in there.
on the 22nd, but the certificate says 21st.
Yeah, I just assume everything is okay.
But so which day do y'all claim then? Which do y'all celebrate?
The 22nd. Yeah.
Your family records will be all off.
Hey, I did a
one day.
wedding one time. It was a beach wedding.
We told them the right. I mean, anyway.
Yeah, and this guy was our youth pastor at the time. So it was in Florida. We did it in Destin. So he gets his marriage license in Alabama. We go down there. He realized that the day they issued him the marriage license, they also put as the expiration date. So it was expired the day he got it. So then he gets to Destin and realizes his driver's license are expired. So he had driven all the way to one of the counties in the border of Alabama to get a new marriage license, realized his driver's license expired. So I showed up and he's like, hey, man, we don't have a valid license. And you have to know this guy. He's insane anyway. And he's like, are you good with doing the wedding? And I'm like, hey, man, I'm good with it if you are. so we did the marriage ceremony and all that. And I was like, guess y'all can come back to my office later and we can we do another ceremony. But we finally got it. So I think his marriage date and his marriage license don't match because of that.
Are they still married?
So we're not
Their
the only
marriage
ones.
did not
They're
expire
still
like
married.
the license or the.
They are still married and they're doing really well.
Well, good.
Yeah,
Good.
they've got 3 children now, so they're doing great. Yeah. So, yeah, but, as we kind of think about the next season, we do need a little help with that. Let us know what's going on. Celebrate your kids and accomplishments and those sorts of things. We wanted that to catch on, so hopefully it will.
And I think the things that we did celebrate and things that we did find out were fun to celebrate and to know about and to learn and hear about for the families within the church. So definitely let us know next season.
I liked having the softball scores I like that. I'm sportsy.
I did think the sports stuff was fun. I even liked the fantasy football league stuff. So I thought all the sports stuff was a lot of fun.
There you go. So help us out with that. And then we had the Ask BB the segment, asking some questions. I had some really good questions. Not as many as I would like to have had, but we had some really good ones. So we got a one to end on.
Yeah, so my daughter actually has a question, Brian. And I think the Ask Brian segment was probably my favorite. I have lots of questions always. So
send them in.
I sat over there and learned a lot while we were filming.
I might have been responsible for the Maccabees question.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, but my daughter has a question, Brian.
Okay.
She was asking last night. She said she wanted to ask you this, so I told her I would ask today. If the last will be first and the first will be last,
okay,
what about all those people in the middle?
Which is that's so awesome. That's such a great perspective. Let me tell you why. So the answer to the first for last and the last first is what's a really weird way of putting it. The point is Jesus is making there is that the way things are going now is not the way it's going to be in the end. There's a lot of unjust things that are going to be brought to justice. There's a lot of people who are prideful, who are going to be humbled. That's kind of the equilibrium of the way it's going now is going to be completely turned over, which is what that saying that's applied several times. And there's some people who think, man, I'm unworthy and I'm pathetic and God doesn't love me, that they think they're not going to be in the kingdom, and man, they're going to be the first in the kingdom. That's kind of what we love influence and power and all that kind of stuff. But the kingdom is completely opposite of the values of the way people put it there. But here's the great thing about that question. So I was at the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. one time. And
I'm going there this week, actually.
That is a must stop. And it's going to take you all day to get to that museum. It's incredible. I hope he's still there. I guess he's still there. Maybe it was just at that time. But they had a Jewish scribe in there copying the Hebrew manuscripts. And I was watching, because I've taken Hebrew and I want to see how he did it and the scripts and all that kind of stuff. So we just got to talk and asking questions. And one of the amazing things that he said, we were talking about interpreting scripture and all that kind of stuff, the way he sees it, the way Christians see it. And he said, one of the things that you can always tell in the story of God, whether it's good or evil, whether it's rich or poor, whether it's good or bad, whether it's dry seasons or harvest seasons, he says all the way through Scripture and all the way through human history, God is always bringing it back to equilibrium, always bringing it back into balance. And so my answer to what about those people in the middle, Eris, you're exactly where you need to be. If you're at that balance, that's where you need to be. What a great question, though.
Awesome.
I like it. So, the goal was to introduce people to the church, who people are in the church, what they do, what their stories are. How do y'all think we did with that? We had, like I said, 40 guests throughout the season. What'd y'all think? How was it received by the church? What's the feedback you got?
I heard a lot of people say really good things, and I even heard people outside the church that were not members of the church say, hey, I watched that episode. I really enjoyed that.
That's cool.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I was encouraged to watch a lot of people that are maybe not comfortable telling their story or speaking in front of a large group of people come and sit right here and talk to you, and just open up about what God's done in their lives. I look at some past episodes and I think, man, what powerful stories that maybe had we not had this platform to sit and share those stories, would people in the church know anything about, what went on and how God worked in people's lives? And so it's just been really cool to see people, even if they were apprehensive about it or, they needed a little encouragement or one of y'all to kind of draw it out of them, just really how awesome it has been to see God tell that story through people. And the church is better for it because we know more about each other. And even from my perspective, sitting over there videoing and editing and publishing and all that stuff, I've gotten to know people that otherwise I would have not gotten to know. And I know when I see people around the church, I'm like, oh, I know their story now.
When we envisioned this, it was kind of the Nicole segment, especially reflects the old newsletter format. Every week, or I can't remember if it's every week at one church, but every month at other churches, you get the old church newsletter. You had all the birthdays, anniversaries, all that kind of stuff going on, which is why we wanted that in there. But another goal was because in the congregation, you're just looking at the back of everybody's head. And so you're seeing their face, you're hearing their story, all that. One of my favorite things when you pulled in like some of the students, if there's student stuff going on, I really like that. But yeah, I thought it was really good to be able to help people put some stories with some faces. So let's just kind of roll through 5 months of content right quick and just kind of ask your some takeaway favorite moments from. But we started off with redemption stories, and we had Stephanie Young, Susan Vick, Stephanie Kelly. That first month, and that's when none of us really knew how this was going to go, right? So that was a great lead off.
Trying to figure out camera angles and all, lighting, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And those ladies did a great job.
They did.
Like they came in, they told their stories, they seemed confident and comfortable and shared lots of goodness with us through their stories in it.
And I was very thankful that they did. Because I was like, please come and share your story with us. I really loved how the redemption part of all that God was seeing in every single one of those. And they all highlighted his glory in that. But what they're good that came out of that, out of it.
Yeah, those are strong testimonies.
Very strong testimonies.
It's good stuff. And then we did in February, we did the Not So Newlywed Game, which was fun. We had the Gerbers and the Abrahams, the Halls, which was the newest couple in the church. Austin and Valerie was... Man,
I remember standing out in the foyer because I think Val went first, and then brought me in to compare the answers, and I thought,
wow,
man, is she ever going to wrap up?
Yeah,
is this not done yet? But then, it's her.
So behind the scenes, just to let everybody kind of know,
I can say that
every week we would have a call, and we would all be on the call, just kind of thinking ahead. And so I'll never forget. We're trying to figure out who to have on there, and you said, you need to have Valerie on here. Yeah. And you said, it will be gold. And, you were so right about that.
I've been married to her for 10 years.
And what a lucky man you are.
Yes.
But hey, my favorite moment in that, I don't know if y'all remember this, when she's telling the story about your proposal, and she basically said that when she said yes, it made her sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna marry this man. I think I want to throw up.
Yeah. Yeah. Me and airplanes. That's what we have in common for her.
Oh man, that was gold. Then we had the Byers, the Whaleys, the Jenkins, and the Albertsons. So what was a lot of? Gosh, we can sit here all day and talk about all that. What was your favorite moments from all that?
Oh, mine was the Whaleys. I love everything about Dana and Jimmy, and Jimmy has a nickname.
Yeah.
when he dances, Johnny Disco.
Johnny Disco.
Apparently dances a lot around the house.
I think we could be friends.
We're all trying to picture it in our mind what it looks like right now. Maybe we just need a demonstration sometime in season 2. I don't know. Maybe a bumper or something like that. We could have a little Johnny Disco.
Johnny Disco.
Yes.
December disco with Johnny.
Hey,
There you go.
They
got 6 months to get ready.
That's one of those couples that when we were having them on here, I thought, man, this could be so good because, unless you really know them, they just come in and drift in and out of the church like everybody else. Dana's so funny up front. Jimmy's kind of quiet, but man, when you get to know them, they are hilarious. They were a lot of fun. So I like that part. Anything else from the Not So Newlywed Game?
Who do you think won? Who do you think got the most points?
Yeah, that was the problem because we did it.
I know it wasn't
different
us.
every
we
time
did.
we did it.
We did.
So.
But we had 5 questions, right?
Everybody had 5
Yeah.
questions. Yeah.
Yeah. I know the Whaleys did really good. Jenkins did really good. I think the
Byers did good too.
yeah,
That Byers and Whaley week,
Yeah.
that was probably
Whaley week.
Whaley week.
I think that was probably the highest
It
scoring
was.
week. So,
I think so.
but it was fun had by all. And then, man, one of my favorite things of the whole deal is when we got to March. What's Luck got to do with it? Your little bumper videos,
Yeah.
those were gold. Those were really good.
You're welcome.
That the production value was
Well, shout out to Val for helping me film it around the house.
really good. So we had Cindy and Will Jones. That was hey, here's a moment we can look back on. That's when we had a prayer meeting, and just through a series of circumstances, felt led to zero in on $100,000, and we got $100,000. And Melissa came in and told that story, which was incredible. And then you and Ken talked about kind of the start of y'all's business. But the What's Luck got to do with it month? What was your favorite moment from that?
I think the 100,000 prayer, that just, to me, it just shows the power again of God in our prayer and, how he works everything out.
Melissa did a great job of
She
telling
did.
that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love that we've been having the prayer meetings and you have felt the church being called to prayer. And during a month of What's Luck got to do with it, God just shows up in a big way
Yeah.
and says it's not luck.
It's not
me.
luck, it's God.
Right in the
And
middle
he
of it.
just joined us in that month to show that it's his power and his sovereignty and his provision. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and having a format like this, when something like that happens, we've got a format to get it out there, and do want to let everybody know through the summer we'll still be putting out content for the app and all that, but having the podcast kind of it helps the story of Sunday continue a little bit, and that was a week that kind of demonstrated the power of that. But
Because
yeah,
I don't think without this, not many people would know about that.
Nobody would know.
Because we don't have a huge crowd that comes on Sunday nights for those prayer meetings. So not many people would know.
yeah, and we were able to get the news
Right.
out that week. It was pretty incredible.
And so here's a little plug for those Sunday night prayer meetings. They're awesome.
They
We
are
have the
awesome.
fellowship meal after. You will see God move in incredible ways. So I encourage everyone to try to come to some of those.
I tell you a neat offshoot from that. There was a family who saw that story told on the podcast, contacted Melissa. They don't go to church here, and they said we want to be a part of that,
Wow.
and they gave too.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really neat, really neat. Storm stories. I liked this month right here. The just kind of telling those trials of life kind of things. The things that help people transition new seasons. We had Gabe and Dawn Shady, the Landowski story, which was incredible, the Cochrans, and then Nathan Green.
For me, one of my favorite things about Gabe and Dawn's story, my heart breaks for women that I see in the church whose husbands don't come with them, maybe aren't believers or just aren't leading their family, and then I see Dawn who just remained faithful to that, and then how Gabe came through. And so I think she's a great encouragement to those women in our church who are going through that at the time. So I love that her story got out there and people can look to them and say, wow, look what God did in their lives.
And I like how she never gave up. One of my favorite parts about that is where he said he comes in at 2:00 in the morning, spent everything that they had. She's sitting there at the dining room table with her Bible open, and he sees the tears falling off her face onto the Bible. And I think that's so powerful, that she never gave up. And those tears, the Bible tells us that God holds every one of those tears. And to me, I was just like, oh my gosh. I didn't know if I could hold it together in that segment, when we were talking about that.
Yeah, Liberty, thinking about this, with Liberty with the recovery ministry and all this kind of thing, I think a lot of people do forget there are extended family members out there that are really suffering from everybody who's trying to work it out and get in recovery. Man, there's families in the background they are hurting. So, yeah.
And you had highlighted this at some point when you were talking about Nathan's story. But I might be paraphrasing a little bit, but you would ask him a question sort of towards the end of his interview. What would you tell 2012 Nathan, if sitting here today, if you could talk to him in the situation that he was in? And man, to me, that was one of my favorite answers of this whole season when Nathan just said, I just let him know that God loved him, and that's what we all need.
Yeah.
Is an awareness of the love of God that He has for us, and that changes everything.
A lot of people need to hear that. And you think about these episodes, they provide a good tool. I mean, I think we all kind of know people and families going through stuff. I would encourage you, if there's a story in there, if you haven't seen them all, go back and watch them all. They're all just really good. But to send it to somebody and go, hey, man, you need to watch this guy. You need to listen to this couple. So, and then we ended on the Mayflowers, just the new season that some growth has brought about. Casey Barrett, Heather Lowry, and Melissa Ketchum.
All three of those were great. Casey talks about whenever just every moment that she feels like God was telling her to go ahead and open because He woke her up in the middle of the night. And when she would think back and things would be coming at her, she'd just remember. She'd go back and remember the night God woke her up. Heather Lowry's story. Heather was giving up the day she got the call.
Wow.
She was like, I'm not going to pursue this any longer, this adoption. She was telling everybody, and that day she gets the call. And then Melissa, that's one of my favorite stories. She, to me, has one of the most powerful comeback stories. Watching her go from walking into this church with that anger on her face. And I mean, I can remember that till today, sitting across from us and a smile on her face and loving her children and being in the place and God being the whole center of her life.
And she said something in hers about growing up in addiction. And
She did.
I just think it's so powerful that her daughters don't have to grow up in
don't.
that. She's changed the story for them.
She broke that generational curse because that's all she had known. And her kids don't have to do that now.
Mm-hmm.
You're right.
Man, I tell you, stand at the front door, greet people on Sunday mornings. When Melissa walks in with them two little girls, it kind of reminds you, hey, this is why you do. You do what you do. And she is definitely one of the powerful stories, and she's become a great leader in our church. Not just a great story, but a really good leader. So, man, this is a huge question, right? But just your own personal biggest takeaway from the first season. Let's just kind of go around the table and when you look back on all of it, whether it's a story we told or whatever, what's a big takeaway for you?
For me, I think that the connection and the community that this has brought about, we get to see people's stories that we would never know, we would never talk to. I see the power of prayer woven through every single one of these segments, and how God is always working in our waiting. And I love how we can connect to one another. How like just Nicole, it brought tears to your eyes talking about Melissa. And how we can, even if we aren't in those situations, we still learn how to love that person a little deeper, and we see the beauty in that person and how God has worked in their lives. And not only that, but I think that we come to respect people a little bit more when we know their stories. And, and we can go back. One thing Gabe said during his interview was, everybody's scared of a storm and it's fearful and it's hard and nobody wants to go through one. But he said, God, thank you for trusting us with this storm.
Wow.
And if you look back on all these, every single person's been through a storm.
Yeah, it's good.
And mine is a lot of the same thing. It's just knowing the people better. And because I've been here for a long time and y'all too, and a lot of these people have been, we kind of know most of these people, but there's so many people in our church who don't know each other. And when they can hear, so I'll say this is, and I love her dearly, but Jeanette Abraham scared me for many years. Like, she was such a scary woman
She still
to me.
intimidates me.
I mean, and I love that about her now. But to see her like on the Not So Newlywed Game, and just to see a different side of her, but she's awesome. She bakes for the church. She can do anything. She's incredible. But to see them like that, or to hear Susan Vick say that she was not a people person and she was not outgoing, and to see how God has changed her, and think, wait, you didn't like talking to people at some point, and then like the Landowskis, and if you don't know why Anthony's missing part of his leg, and that he used to be a Mormon, and just knowing the people and knowing more about them, I think makes us feel better about who we are and where we are. And I just think it creates more unity in the church, and I hope so. I hope that's what people get from it, is that We are all people who make up the church, and none of us are perfect. And even those people that might look perfect, there's a story to all of them, and that we all care about each other.
And people out there need to know you're not the only one. You're not the only one dealing with
absolutely.
stuff you're dealing with. It's really good. Austin?
You know, I guess it was probably over a year ago at this point. Time is sort of all meshes together. You know, when you have little kids and you're running to and fro and all these different things. But I know it was before we had made our way to Liberty, before I came on staff, and I was interested, still watching like some sermons and just trying to get an idea of the church and things like that. And I remember in one of your messages that I tuned into, you were talking about how God was, you felt like the Lord told you that through Isaiah 61 that he was going to use people's stories as a way to, bring liberty and set the captives free, things like that. And you're probably going to follow this up and say this much better than I will, because I'm like king of paraphrasing, I think. I need to just go down and like write actual quotes. But the point of that stuck with me. And when we started talking about this podcast, I felt early on like this was one of the ways that God was going to use this platform to tell those stories of how he has set people free. And then through those stories, set other people free. And just, it's been amazing to see God work. I mean, I look at all these episodes, all these stories, and I really see that as the evidence of, God's word coming to pass in this way. So
I didn't think about it like that, but there are a lot of things that have just, sometimes they come to fruit, and some things that God gives you, and you need somebody to turn around and go, hey, see how that's worked. So that's good. That's really cool. For me, there's a lot of podcasts from pastors and churches and things, and it may be like a pastor and his wife talking about marriage, and it may be a pastor giving issues each week or something like that. I think a big takeaway from me is that with the help of you guys and the help of everybody in the church, we did it in the sense of what I was wanting to accomplish is something that's very unique and local to a church. I don't see any church podcast like this, where it's pulling in people from the congregation, it's telling you what's going on week to week. And so my biggest takeaway would just be thankfulness for y'all. And this takes a lot of time, especially in editing all this kind of stuff. I don't think people realize just kind of the time and the effort in this. Scott and Austin just kind of working on the technology behind the scenes. This room has gotten a whole lot better since we started it. But, man, just that takeaway of this is a very unique presentation that it's almost living and breathing week by week. And I love it about that what God's kind of done in this. So, two more questions to wrap up. One, what do you see God doing here at Liberty? We've talked to a lot of people. What do you see God doing right now, season of this church? I think you just mentioned one of the big ones right there, right? Just getting those stories out. But
right.
I think that we see God fulfilling his promises and answering prayer to those who are seeking him. And one of my biggest things is I don't know how much is my responsibility and when then to hand it over to God. Like, I want to make sure I do my part, but not overstep and step into his place. But I think it's important that we do our part, and with all of these stories, you see that they did their part. They prayed, they asked, they believed, they were faithful, they waited, or whatever it was that they needed to do, and God answered. And so I think even with the $100,000 and other things that as a church we've prayed for, God provides, but we have to show up. We have to pray. We have to be in the Word. We have to grow. We have to walk closer to Him. And so I just see Him just being good and being who He says He is to the people of our church.
it's awesome.
I think I see people being real. The transparency of people coming out, knowing that it's okay to not be okay, knowing that we all walking through hard seasons we've all had. No one's exempt. No one gets out without a storm story, and that it's okay to be transparent about that. and that we're still going to love and not judge, and that this is that's one thing I love about Liberty is the non-judgmental that comes along with it. I personally have walked through some really hard things and not been judged, and I love that about Liberty too. And it's okay to be transparent, and it's okay to be open and to be vulnerable. And I think that's what God calls us to. And I think that's one thing that this is opening up for people.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah. I think God is getting glory that he deserves through this. I mean, I think that's my big takeaway. I think all the glory has been aimed towards him.
It has.
Love it.
Those arrows
Yeah.
that you talk about a lot.
Yeah.
Shooting those
That's
arrows.
cool. That's cool. So we know the next question is what do you want to see? So we'll be back in August. So what do you want to see in season 2? Nicole's already told you she wants more birthdays and anniversaries and things to celebrate, right? And I want more questions. But just from y'all sitting around here in the table, that's a great question because, over the summer, I think people sometimes don't realize how much time this takes. But taking a break, but it also kind of gives you some creative space, kind of think about what the next season looks like. We'd love for you to tell us what you'd love to see in the next season. And we've kicked around some changes and things like that. But I don't know. There's as Austin said, the cliffhanger. What do you want to see next season?
I think I want to see people encouraged by season 1 who are maybe apprehensive to tell their story, or maybe gave us a no or a maybe, or let me think about it. I want to see season 1 encourage people to know, hey, it's going to be all right. This is a good thing, and you don't have to be afraid to step out and tell your story or be part of what we might ask you to do.
It's really good because you ask a whole lot more people than were on here. Yeah,
I did,
so.
and your story has power, and I want people to share
be
their
encouraged.
to share their story because everyone's story is important and needs to be. We all have a story that needs to be told, and to show God's glory, to show His power. And I don't want people to miss that. And I think if we don't share those stories, we're going to miss the blessing from it ourselves as the one that has the story to get out there. But so is everyone else.
Yeah, it's good.
One thing that I've heard from a lot of people is that they like when the staff does roundtable. So I know that like people that are in children's know Jody.
Yeah, I gotta watch what they say, Scott. We're going to censor some things with the staff. That's terrible, isn't it?
Well, maybe to make an edit a little bit better.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it was like 51% of me wanted to leave it in and 49 didn't. But that extra couple of percent is just kind of
my mama said you don't use that word, Scott. But anyway, sorry about that.
Appreciate the grace.
But I do think it's a good way for people to get to know our staff better too, and that's what I've heard a lot of people say is that they might not know Jody or Levi or Austin or Melissa or Scott on a personal level, and so to see them on here, they feel like they get to know the leadership of the church better.
Yeah,
and I think too they don't see that humor side of them.
Right.
They always see that real serious. And I mean that's a good thing because it's church is meant to be serious. I mean this is a serious thing, but I love the humor side of people too, and to know that God loves laughter and that it's all good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, maybe we could get like making coffee with Austin in the next season.
Hey, I'll tell you, man, I would love to know the count of how many cups of coffee were consumed in the recording and the editing and the all the different parts of what makes this thing go together.
Austin's been a trooper.
This has been at least 120. I don't know, maybe just a rough number.
All the coffee shops in the area appreciate this podcast.
Yeah.
I guarantee you that. Yeah. For me, I'd like to see the next season, and this has been so well received. I think I didn't expect as many people to watch it and to tune into it as they did. Early on when we started this, I'd been meeting with Josh Hall for a year, over a year, just before their wedding and doing discipleship, and it's really good. And he told me that, on Tuesday night, this is what him and Maddie watch. They turn on their TV because it's on YouTube. The next episode of Alive at Liberty is on there. So I loved it. That's what I want to see is more just people making it appointment. Just now that we have the app in so many different ways, for it just to grow. Not even you mentioned outside the church, which is great. But just for people inside the church, just to make it a regular part of, Jody talked about her drive in or whatever, however you do it. But just for people to realize it is that newsletter, it is the stories, it is such a connecting point of the fellowship of the church. So that's what I'd like to see. Yeah. So this is it, y'all. Anything else you think about just kind of to leave off with?
What is the date that we can tell everybody that the first episode of season 2 drops? It's August.
I don't know.
Okay. I'm sorry I set you up for that. Yeah. I wanted to say 7th, whatever the first Tuesday in August is.
Man, I'm going to tell you.
Put that on your calendar.
Gosh, we got, just on a personal note, we'll be moving Kylie to Texas right in there somewhere the first week of August. So I don't know. So maybe it might be the second week. I don't know.
Might film ahead of time and publish it.
We were supposed to move her the second week of August, and then she is going to be a part of an a cappella group. So this is a new venture, right? So, so they called her and let her know, hey, you've got to be here a week early. So now we've got to take her very first week of August. So hopefully at some point, mid-August maybe.
Are they going to do like the competitions and stuff? I'm so excited.
So what's that? She's been watching that. What's the
Pitch
movie?
Pitch Perfect.
Yeah. So if they do, Kylie would be a great character in that. I'll promise you that.
Oh yeah.
I know they travel around, and I know they professionally film the things that they do. Like this group has all kind of social media accounts and all that kind of stuff. And she had done choral music at Shorter, but this gives her a new opportunity to kind of do something a little bit different. So she's
I'll have to
fired
get
up
that
about
information from her and follow her.
Yeah,
on that
so
journey.
I don't know what they're called, but it's Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, and it's it's almost like was it Lee Singers kind of thing? It's kind of set up like that. So it's an a cappella group there. So, but anyway, well, hey, we do appreciate everybody tuning in, watching this, helping it to grow, and just kind of being patient along. And if you do have ideas and feedback and things for the next season, we would love to hear from you. Through the summer, I'm still going to be answering questions. So please send those in. And the Love Like This content, we got a couple more weeks of that. Once I finish it, I'll start bringing out some other things through the summer. So the app is always going to be critical to stay tuned in to what's going on at Liberty. But as for this, wait until August, and we'll see you back live at Liberty.